I've known about OM a lot longer than I've known about OM ships. In fact, one of the founders of OM attended my church in Chicago, but I had no idea of the size and the extent of the ministry represented by this ship until I was actually on it. I'm just very impressed with how all the little pieces fit together to make the thing work as a whole.
What do you make of the people who are serving on board this vessel?
They make me feel very old. I'm also impressed by their commitment. In the United States, it's easy to get stereotypes of the rest of the world. So we assume, the church in Europe is dying. In certain countries like China, Christians are being persecuted. And in Japan, there are very few Christians. And in Russia, the state church is kind of squelching mission work. You hear these things, and I'm sure there's truth behind some of them. And yet, God has his people in every one of these places. And as I understand it, serving on the ship is kind of the goal of every person who knows about OM. There are a lot of assignments you can do, but if you can get on the ship, that's the one.
So how do you speak into that, and how are you encouraging them with what you're saying on board?
I talked about some of the challenges that happen when you're in a closed community like this. Competition, division, inevitable. Anytime you throw people together from different backgrounds and different jobs, there's going to be maybe some little jealousy, some competition, and so I spoke directly into that. I will speak about the problem of pain, people who are going through suffering, because we're in the midst of a territory which was affected by the worst hurricane in history. Where is God in this? What can you say? How can you possibly minister? I've been dealing with that question for many years, so I'm trying to get across anything I've learned about that will equip them, because they're the ones who are going to be visiting these places and dealing with those issues directly.
It's obviously nothing new for you to find your books on bookshelves, but what's it been like for you browsing through our floating book fair?
It was new for me to see my books at a cheaper price than I can possibly buy them. And I don't know how they do it, but from the very beginning, OM has found a way to get an incredible supply of books at an amazing cost. And then they can distribute them here on the ship, which I think is wonderful. But more than that, just watching, here's a display of my books. Of course, I'm speaking here, so they have a good display of them. And just sitting there and watching person by person come up and interact with them, consider them, just watch. No, this is not where I am right now, but he wrote a book on prayer, and I'm trying to figure out prayer. Okay, I'll go over here. And I've had some personal encounters even while being here, where people who are there will tell me why they chose that particular book.
That never gets old for you, does it?
Frankly, there have been very few times in my career, even though I've been doing this for 40 years, where I actually see someone reading one of my books, maybe once on an airplane or a bus or something, once a decade. Well, here I can actually see it day by day almost.
So what does Philip Yancey take away from this experience on board?
I think I would be very bad at working in the book fair, because I'm kind of an introvert, and having conversations all day with strangers would drive me crazy. But there are some people who are good at that. And then there are other people who do the important things to keep a ship running, and that includes cleaning the toilets and picking up the trash and buying the food and cooking the food, all of these different things. So Paul could have used the ship analogy rather than a body analogy, because it's quite parallel. But I like the body analogy because it does show that life and that vibrancy. And I think if any visitor to the ship comes away struck with that kind of vibrancy that really can only come from a group whose median age is 22, not 62.